Okay, good evening, colleagues. We'll start the meeting now. Just a reminder, due to unforeseen circumstances and in accordance with the Council's constitution, I'm deputising for Councillor Potts this evening. So welcome to the meeting of the Borough Council. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Welcome to the members of the public in the public gallery and also those watching from home. If any of the members of the public or press would like to record proceedings themselves, please do so from the public gallery without interfering with the business of today's meeting. If the fire alarm sounds, can those sitting in the public gallery exit through the doors behind them, and those sitting in the council chamber leave the room by the doors behind me and make your way to the front of the town hall. To limit disturbances, please ensure mobile phones and other electronic devices are switched off or on silent during the meeting. Please also keep movement in and out of the chamber to a minimum. Any member who wishes to speak on any of the agenda items should use the microphones available. Full council today will only deal with the business that is set out in the summons. And finally, I would not like to remind all members of Council Procedure Rule 34. Any councillor who speaks at any meeting will not accuse anyone, whether member, officer or otherwise, of improper motives or use offensive expressions or unparliamentary language, and must demonstrate compliance with the Council Pride values and the member code of conduct at all times. I'll not tolerate unacceptable behaviour, so please consider this your first and final warning. I've received apologies from Councillor McCabe, Councillor Potts and Councillor Thompson. Any other members aware of any other apologies? Councillor Davies?
Councillor McKee.
Councillor Kennedy? Councillor Yeh? Councillor Owens-Palmer? Any others? No. McCabe, Thompson, Potts. I'd like to just wish Councillor Thompson and Councillor Potts well and hope they're recovering. What rule has been broken, Councillor?
Section 34.1, page 198.
Just we'll have
Do I
to
need to wait till I've found that paragraph, or will I just go ahead?
No, we'll just wait until we found it.
Version 12, July 2025, Constitution. Last paragraph.
Could you repeat the section, please, Councillor?
34.1, members' conduct.
Okay, Councillor, continue.
Right, I don't know, on your warnings in your introduction there, Mr Mayor, if you mentioned about standing to speak, because I've mentioned this at other meetings. I don't think you did mention it, but if I could just remind you, we should be standing when we're speaking to the Mayor, because it's looking bad at every meeting. I mean, I know there's people got a reason that they don't stand up, but it's happening too often, and on camera and sitting here, it's not nice. So people should do what the Constitution says. When they're speaking to the Mayor, stand up. Can you just reiterate that, please, if you don't mind?
Thanks for that, but some members obviously have a reason why they can't, but ordinarily people do supposed to speak. No, that's fine. Okay, the first item of business is declarations of interest. Does any member wish to make a declaration of interest before we move on to the next item of business? Councillor Kilgour first.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just to disclose an interest, I'm a member of the Standards Committee. I believe I can remain in the meeting and take part. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm declaring an interest as I'm Vice Chair of Standards Committee.
Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'm declaring an interest in agenda item number 8 as Chair of the Pensions Committee. Thank you.
Councillor Robertson, sorry.
Declaring interest as a member of the Standards Committee, and because I've been in front of the Standards Committee in my two reports, I am there, but I will be taking part. Thank you.
Any other members? Councillor Lamont.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 6, a member of the Standards Committee, and also item 8 as a member of the Pensions Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Welsh.
Yes, I'd like to declare an interest in item 8 as Vice Chair of Pensions.
Councillor Cunning, do you have your hand up as well there? Yep.
I'd like to declare in a contract, Standards Committee.
Councillor Foreman.
Yeah, declare an interest as a member of the Pensions Committee.
Councillor Herbert.
I declare interest as a member of the Standards Committee and the Pensions Committee.
Councillor Brennan.
Just to declare an interest, I'm a member of the Standards Committee.
Councillor Coombs.
I declare an interest. I am a member of the Pensions Committee.
If that's everyone then, Councillors are reminded that if you have a disposable pecuniary interest in an item which prevents you from participating in the debate during any vote, you need to leave the chamber during that item. So item 2, minutes of the meeting of Borough Council dated 24th of July 2025. Are they accepted? Are the correct record? Okay, thank you. Item 3, Mayor's announcements or communication.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. Do we have any matters arising from the minutes?
No, not if everyone agreed it. There's no matters arising. It's been agreed.
I didn't agree them.
So item 3, Mayor's announcements or communications. The next item of business is Mayor's announcements and communications. Colleagues, I have no announcements to make. Can I take this opportunity to welcome Lucy Keating, the Director of Legal and Government and the Monitoring Officer, and wish her well in her new role today. Thank you. Item 4 is the Director of Business and Resources on the Treasury Management Annual Report 2024-25. I'll ask Councillor Foreman, Lead Member of Governance, Finance and Corporate Services, to present this report. Councillor Foreman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, Treasury Management is the process by which the Council's cash flow, investments and borrowing activities are managed. The Council complies with the requirements of the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy Code of Practice on Treasury Management. The Code requires full Council to receive an annual report on Treasury Management activity. This report covers the economic background, the movement in interest rates, and the Treasury Management activities for 24-25. A challenging economic climate and elevated level of interest rates have impacted the level of performance against the original forecasts outlined within the Treasury Management strategy. Mr Mayor, the Council is recommended to note this report, and I move it, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Councillor Carr, I think you got there first. Are there any questions, or does any member wish to speak to the report or move any amendments? Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Inflation is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's quietly eroding the real value of our long-term debt. With our average borrowing rate of 3.84%, inflation having averaged above that for much of this period, the real burden of what we owe is being reduced. And that's over the long term, over the last medium term history of this. This is one of the few pieces of good news in an otherwise difficult fiscal landscape. The sharper edge of that sword, though, is the day-to-day budgets. That same inflation that helps on paper is driving up our costs, especially in adult and children's social care, and the price of care packages is rising faster than the headline inflation. Unlike the UK government, we are not an issuer of currency. We have to go to them to get this money. We are a very good customer for a very long time, paying down that debt with prudence, year after year. But it's essential for our survival too. It remains structured sensibly. Our asset base of around 1.5 billion gives us a ratio of around 50%. That average term of that debt over 30 years, locking in when conditions are favourable, and that is what prudent public finance looks like. We have to, however, maintain over the next few years some debt that is refinanced in the shortfall as interest rates fall, and hopefully inflation too. Where refinancing has taken place recently, this has not been to pile on new borrowing, but to fix costs at lower rates and extend maturities to match the life of the assets that we have built with that money. It's not glamorous, but it keeps services running when markets turn rough. Every year, we make our minimum revenue provision, a statutory repayment, so the underlying debt reduces over time. We are not ignoring the balance sheet, we are managing it methodically. The real challenge, though, lies elsewhere. The failure to build enough homes over the last decade in our borough, through the protracted decision on the local plan, has stagnated the population growth and has led to an ageing demographic. This has resulted in a shrinking population over the metrics that we were being judged against. And so the fair funding formula that is coming down the track is going to punish us, because the deprivation and demographics that we see in our borough have been diluted on paper while the need has grown here on the ground. So we face higher costs, higher demand and lower funding. So over the next 3 years, that squeeze will tighten further. But we need to maintain our position of prudence at the moment. Continue to invest in prevention, extra care schemes, renewable energy projects to permanently lower costs and support the independence of an ageing population. But I welcome the moves that we are making to advocate for ourselves in the fair funding settlement, to really advocate for the increased need that's come for our borough, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Davies, your time's up there. Are you come to a conclusion?
That is our disciplined, realistic path that this report sets out, protecting our services today while keeping our finances sustainable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor, yeah, you had your hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I think that's the formal title. And thank you very much for the report. Just at point 46 of the report, you note that our PFI liabilities, quoted at a total of 91.2 million, are supported by funding received from the national government. With the significant reductions in government funding expected through the Fair Funding Review, as noted by Councillor Davies, have we assessed our capacity to maintain these liabilities, noting that the current projections will require us to save approximately 24 million over the next 3 years? Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Myers, you had your hand up as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think we have hit a crossroads for borrowing and increasing debt within the council. It's become blatantly obvious, not just to this side of the chamber, that's said it for the last few years, but to the ruling Labour group as well, that it's unsustainable, it can't continue. Something needs to change if this council is to avoid bankruptcy. Under Section 114, this council is in £800+ million of debt and serving interest, and that debt takes up to 20% of our budget. That's £1 in 5 going nowhere but to simply service the interest on the debt. Recently, I have found out that our strategic reserves are at an all-time low, and that this council's financial outcome hangs on a decision in December of the Fair Funding Review. If this review is less favourable to us, we are up the creek without a paddle. The council is already making another 5 million in cuts next year, which will be affecting services and will need to dip into its strategic reserves to make ends meet. Those reserves are dwindling fast, all extremely worrying. Next year, we could see services slashed again, deeper and harder than ever before as reality bites. You wouldn't think it from the Labour group who expect you to go without, while they are still enjoying first-class travel. If we have to tighten our belts because of past Labour mistakes, then they should lead by example. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, I'm not going to read off a bit of paper. I'm going to speak from my heart and from the knowledge and my research that I do. Thank you. So, right, I think we should have kept Councillor Porthouse as the chair of the Audit Committee, because the new chair's been brainwashed in 5 months. So I regret that move, and I apologise, Richie. I wish I'd have left you there. Right? Now, in this report, we keep on reading about SIPFA, the Chartered Institute of Public Finance. No, there's no bit of paper there, I'm not reading the paragraph. SIPFA. Now, SIPFA gave this council an action plan 3.5 years ago. That action plan, I've chased it up at meeting after meeting over the last 3.5 years, and to my knowledge, I don't know if the chair of the audit committee can tell us, or the previous chair, that action plan still hasn't been completed yet. 3.5 years. So no matter what gets said in this chamber about our finances, about how prudent we are, how can it be that the Chartered Institute of Public Finance gives us an action plan of very serious issues that we still haven't done 18 months after the deadline that we agreed to do it by? Yeah? We just cannot be doing it that way. Thank you very much.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, does someone have a point? Oh, Councillor Francis.
I'm a bit late because it took me this long to find it, but 12.4.3, the Mayor will warn an elected member for irrelevance, unnecessary repetition, failure to address the Mayor, unbecoming language or offensive remarks about an elected member. And I think we've all just heard that in that previous speech. Thank you.
Councillor Francis, thanks. I know what you're referring to there, so does Councillor Robertson, please keep it civil for the future.
Can you tell it? Can I?
You need to stand as well.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask what that was about? It just went totally over my head. What I'm accused of, please.
I don't think we need to explain it, but it might cause, we don't need to repeat what's been said. I think everyone's heard it, so we'll carry on. Any other colleagues wish to speak?
Mr. Mayor, I still don't know what I'm accused of. I cannot move on until I know what I'm getting reprimanded for.
Well, Councillor Francis already spoke out what he believed was what was said.
Can you please ask him to say what he's on about,
He doesn't need to. He's already stated.
He does need to.
He doesn't. Councillor, we're not having an argument. Councillor Davies.
Thank you for your discretion, Deputy Mayor. For Councillor Robertson's assurance, I have my own mind. I am in...
Councillor Roberts, don't shout when other people are talking, please.
Councillor Robertson also referred to the Constitution of raising to speak in a meeting and not speaking out of turn. It is in the Code of Conduct that we speak when we are standing and we are silent unless we are. I know my own mind. I would like a ruling on the Constitution breach that Councillor Francis raised, please.
Okay, bear with me a second there. We have no discussion, please, when I'm trying to speak to the monitoring officer. I think Councillor Francis has already made the point, so we'll move on with the debate. We don't want to get into a protracted argument here. If any other colleagues wish to speak on the actual content of the report? No. Okay, so colleagues, Councillor asked to note the report to comply with the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, or SIPFA, Code of Practice on Treasury Management in Public Services. Is that noted? Okay, thank you, colleagues. On to item 5, the next item of business is to consider the annual report of Graham Wright, the Independent Chair of Standards Committee 2024-25. I'll ask Councillor Taylor, as a Cabinet Member on the Standards Committee, authorised to speak at Council on standards matters, to move the report and invite Professor Wright to speak to his report. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Colleagues, this is the 5th and final report of the Independent Chair of Standards Committee, Professor Graham Wright, and covers a period of August 24 to August 25. The report highlights the works of Standard Committee and how the committee has discharged its functions during that period. The report includes a summary of the Chair's personal observations of progress made and addresses issues which may still require attention. I welcome this report from the Independent Chair and would like to acknowledge my gratitude to Professor Wright for his dedicated contributions and commitment in leading and promoting the work of the Standards Committee. Reporting it to full council in this way is intent to ensure there is a regular and constant approach to the reporting and consideration of standards of conduct by elected members and to promote local ownership and collective responsibility by all elected members for ensuring high standards of conduct within our authority. A robust ethnical culture should be integrated to the way we operate. Evidence shows that ethnical culture does not emerge by accident. It requires action. To this end, the role of Standards Committee is promoting, maintaining and protecting standards of conduct within the Council and being displayed at all Council proceedings is so important. Doing things in the right way is critical for public confidence in the bodies that operate on the public's behalf and supports the delivery of good and quality public services and outcomes for residents. I would urge members to remain mindful of the fundamental importance of high standards of conduct at all times and ask all of us across the Chamber to consider and reflect on our own standards of conduct and behaviour. For example, I wonder how many of us have completed the Code of Conduct training following in May 2025 elections. Chair, while as I'm the Cabinet Member of Standards Committee with authority to speak on behalf of Standards Committee at the meeting of the Borough Council, I would like to hand over to Professor Wright, who will speak to his report and be able to answer any questions members may have. Thank you, Professor Wright.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the invitation to speak to this report, which I assume you've all had an opportunity to look at. It's in 5 parts. The first 3 parts I would describe as factual. The 4th part is a report about raising standards, so some of that is a matter of opinion. And then the 5th part is very definitely a matter of opinion. It's my opinion. It's not the committee's opinion. It's not the Vice Chair of the committee's opinion. It's mine. And it's mine from a perspective of being the independent chair, trying to steer a line between different views, different opinions, different parties and different groups. So in the first part, which begins in my report on page 4, you'll find what I would describe as what the committee is, who's a member of it, how many times we've met. Fairly boring, mundane facts, but useful if you're a historian in years to come. But on page 7, there are facts about corporate complaints. If I remind you, corporate complaints are what might be described as service complaints, when members of the public service users submit a complaint to the Council about the quality or otherwise of the service. The Standards Committee does not, in fact, deal with those complaints directly. Our job is to look at the process of the complaints and to ensure that we're comfortable that the process is working effectively and efficiently and is providing officers and council members with the opportunity to review the services and to see whether or not there are strengths and weaknesses. I'll come back to that in a little while. The third part of my report, page 12, is also about facts, and that's concerning the Code of Conduct complaints. That's a matter of numbers, the numbers of breaches, and you'll find in tables 1 and 2 the details of that. Again, I'll come back to that later. The 4th part of my report concerns raising of standards, which I'll refer to in a moment. And then the 5th part are my observations based on informed opinion. So, turning to page 30 in my report, page 30 deals with corporate complaints. And you'll see by the graphs there that the corporate complaints process is working, and indeed the number of complaints coming in has been falling since a peak before I was appointed, indeed, in 2017-18. So that's good. What's still missing, however, is a measure of the time taken to deal with the corporate complaints. And that's something which the Council may wish to look at in more detail. And also to ensure that there's consistency across departments in the way in which complaints are dealt with, but also in which compliments are dealt with. We do get a lot of compliments, but there doesn't seem to be a systematic way at the moment of handling that or indeed defining it. I'm advised that there will be an improvement in this as new software is introduced into our recording systems. Moving on to page 31, again concentrating on the raising of standards. The Code of Conduct complaints. You'll see from that that only 6 councillors have been found to have been in breach of the Code of Conduct. Around 97% of all the complaints that have been dealt with were either withdrawn, or there was insufficient evidence, or they were rejected by the monitoring officer. However, since January 2020, there have been 328 complaints. The important point there, however, is not the number of complaints, but the fact that 43% of them, 43%, were made by just 4 councillors. 43% of 328 complaints were made by 4 councillors. 78 complaints, that's 24%, were made against just 4 councillors. I draw that to your attention because those small numbers are having a disproportionate impact on the work of the Monitoring Office and indeed the work of the Standards Committee and indeed on the reputation of this Council. So as we say on page 31, only 6 have been found to have been in breach of the Code. The vast majority of councillors are serving their community diligently, with hard work, and in a manner in which they and the Borough can be proud. But it is clear that the complaints process regarding the Code of Conduct of members has been weaponised. Even though it's recognised that it's been weaponised, we are not able to ignore complaints. When a complaint comes in, regardless of who made it or who the subject of complaint is, our statutory duties are to investigate and, if there is evidence, to take that further. That means, of course, that there are a huge number of complaints that don't see the light of day, and I have the opportunity to see some of these complaints when they first come in, or the allegations. And I'll repeat a phrase I've used in previous years. Some of them might as well have said, "I don't like Councillor X." And it's from all sides, and it really is quite depressing, because it implies that engagement for many people is seen as simply a matter of complaint, even where, when you read the complaints, and I think members of all parties and groups who've been members of this Standards Committee would agree, when you see some of these complaints, they are in fact trivial. Some of them, more worryingly, though, as far as weaponisation is concerned, are not just trivial, but they are perhaps vexatious. And in some cases, they appear to have been tit for tat. Now, the council constitution allows for complaints that are tit for tat or vexatious to be ignored, to be rejected. Unfortunately, tit for tat is something that requires a tat following the tit, or vice versa. And we only see that when we look back at the data and we look back at the pattern of complaints that are coming in. Consequently, the monitoring office and the monitoring officers particularly have been required to spend an inordinate amount of their professional time dealing with a very large number of complaints which were rejected because there was either no evidence or they were considered trivial. Now, that's not to say that the complaints process should be ignored. Complaints, as we often say in the Standards Committee, are the means by which we find out what we're doing wrong, and it's a guide to help us to try and do things better. That applies to the corporate complaints, and it applies to the Code of Conduct complaints as well. The number of complaints that are coming in means we're not getting it right, even if they're trivial complaints, even if it's unreasonable complaints. We're doing something wrong if we're not getting it right. Looking back at my period of office, and here I'm looking back to my first Standards Committee meeting was in March 2018. I'd been appointed in the February of that year. First thing I would say is there's greatly improved training and guidance for new councillors. It's been my habit to speak individually to newly appointed councillors since I took up my role. And there used to be a number of complaints about the quality of the provision for induction, the amount of training that was available, or the standard of that training. And I'm very pleased to say and to report to you the very significant improvement in the training, in the induction materials, not only for new elected members, but indeed for all members. And I think the council and the council officers involved are to be congratulated on that. There's been a significantly enhanced provision of information on corporate complaints. So we can now see patterns. We now get information over a long-term period. We can identify seasonal factors. It's greatly helped the Standards Committee to understand the corporate complaints process. We've also introduced learning from the national picture. This has become an agenda item on the Standards Committee, where one of the monitoring officers provides a number of case studies from other local authorities. And I don't know whether this would apply to you. Maybe you studiously read the minutes of other councils' meetings, but certainly for me, as an outsider, I found it particularly helpful to see the way in which other councils have, first of all, had the same problems, and secondly, how they've dealt with similar problems. I would also say there's been a very significant improvement in the openness of the process. When I was first appointed, I was advised that almost the entire Standards Committee had to be held in private. I was told that, that in particularly, there was a case coming in from the Ombudsman, and the Local Authority Ombudsman's annual report. I subsequently discovered that that report is actually a public document, and yet it was dealt with in private. We've changed that. I'm pleased to say over the period, all of the Code of Conduct activities and all of the Standards Committee meetings have been held in public, open to the media, open to members of the public. The weaponisation of the process, however, is something that's clear from the pattern over the last 7 years. Sadly, there appear to be some who see being found to have breached a code of conduct complaint to be some kind of a badge of honour. Also, the confidentiality of the process. There's two things I think I really need to keep reminding everybody, including members of the public who throw in letters to the Gazette or onto Facebook pages or wherever, who complain about the ruling council doing this or doing that to an opposition councillor or vice versa. I should just remind you that complaints come in and are dealt with by the monitoring office. The monitoring officers involved are professionally qualified lawyers subject to their professional body standards. And it is they who make an assessment of the importance and the evidence provided by a complainant. In consultation with me or the independent person, they discuss whether or not those complaints should be moved forward to a formal investigation. And I don't need to remind this council that that formal process of investigation takes time and it takes money. If it's decided that a complaint is credible, that there is evidence that needs to be investigated, then either a monitoring officer or more recently an organisation, usually a solicitor from another local authority or a company, is asked to be the independent investigator. Again, they're relying on their legal expertise and experience to make an assessment. Should they make the assessment that in their view a breach has occurred and there's evidence to support it, they write a report. Up until the point in which that report is made public by being on the agenda for a standards meeting, the whole process is confidential, or ought to be. The Constitution says it's confidential. Sadly, the confidentiality of our process is not being respected. Both subject members against whom a complaint is being made and complainants appear to want to get the court of public opinion on side before even the material and the evidence has been examined, and certainly before the reports are made public. That is undermining our process, and it's something we must collectively look at very seriously. Sadly, there are some who fail to be role models for standards. Shortly after I was appointed, the previous monitoring officer came up with the idea of the lanyard. It said something like, "I do standards." I don't think I can see any. Yes, I can see one. I don't know if there are any others around. But it's not the lanyard, is it? It's whether or not, in the corridors of power that you inhabit, in the private meeting rooms where you're discussing with colleagues, in the bars when you're talking to friends, are you upholding standards? Are you upholding the Constitution of South Tyneside? The workload of officers I've referred to already, 328 cases, is a huge number. Check out with other local authorities how many code of conduct complaints they get. They're handfuls. 328 cases to be dealt with by 3 monitoring officers, each of whom has a day job, each of whom has major responsibilities in the direction of this council. It's unsustainable, the pressure on them as individuals and indeed as their office. And then one other thing that I've noticed from the start, and that is frankly rudeness. Bad language or unparliamentary language can sometimes be difficult to pin down. Personally, I use the idea of having my grandchild on my shoulder and ask myself, would that offend? Is that the language that I would want them to be listening to and learning? But I do accept that words, for example, said in jest, in genuine jest, looking to be humorous, those same words used in a negative manner can cause offence. And councillors run the risk of being judged to have been disrespectful, when in fact they were being light-hearted, but perhaps using inappropriate language. Similarly, some people habitually use words and phrases which others might perceive to be inappropriate, to be frank, swearing. But within their friendship groups, that language is normal. What I would say, we need to be careful of the language used in a public space, particularly when representing South Tyneside Council. Now, on occasions, there's also anger underpinning the rudeness. And I've attended, either physically or online, every council meeting since I was appointed. And on occasions, I observe frustration with the council's procedure rules, which are felt by some to be overtly or unnecessarily restrictive. At the same time, I've also observed the poor behaviour of some when challenged by those who are quite rightly raising points that need to be considered. We must have greater respect for each other, not just because it's written in the Constitution, but because if we don't, we can't function properly. Respect also for the chair of the meeting, for the mayor of the council meeting, and for the council's rules and procedures. I've also observed verbal attacks on officers, and indeed written attacks as well. Council officers are, like civil servants, not expected to defending themselves in public. If there is a complaint to be made about an officer, there is a procedure for doing it. But it's not during a public meeting where the officer is carrying out their function. Moving on. We use a model code of conduct created by the Local Government Association, a few tweaks here and there, but largely the code that's applied across the country. What isn't applied right across the country, though, and what might surprise you, is that for many councils, the Standards Committee is not chaired by an independent person, but is chaired by usually a councillor of the leading party. South Tyneside, in my view, got it right by having a Standards Committee that stands alone. It's not associated with another committee, and it has an independent chair who manages to keep away as far as possible from the discussions and debates going on between parties and groups. The important point about the independent chair is I do not have a vote. There's also another lay member who, like me, has no vote. And the big advantage of that is I can point things out, but I don't need to come down on one side or another. Because if I were to vote one way or another way, I could be seen to be partisan. Standards Committee at South Tyneside operates, I think, very effectively in that regard, although I do have a point to make in a moment. I'd also raise the question of the selection of the Standards Committee membership. As independent chair of Standards Committee, I recognise that the membership of the committee is for others to determine. It's subject to approval by the full council at its annual meeting. But following some difficult meetings in the last period, I am concerned as to whether or not all members can act on the basis of the Standards Committee, which is that they are not whipped, they are there as independent individuals, and they're not to be following party lines. It's something the Council may wish to look at. And finally, the Council may also want to consider the Vice Chair. I don't here mean Councillor Taylor, I mean the Councillor Chair, the Vice Chair role. I haven't indeed had to rely on the Vice Chair in my term of office. But if I were to do so, the Vice Chair could be in a position of chairing a very sensitive hearing. The Council has recognised the value of independence by appointing an independent chair. I would like to suggest to you that you consider having an independent Vice Chair made up from the person who is the other lay member, or indeed as a separate lay appointment. Finally, and I think the most important message I want this final report to convey, is that to make improvements in the standards of behaviour is not about the rules of procedure, it's not about the number of complaints, it's not about the number of hearings, it's about the decisions that individuals, you, councillors, make. I can't fix this. No chair of the Standards Committee can fix it. Only you can create the change that is needed, either individually through your personal behaviour, collectively by reviewing the Constitution and protocols, or by your parties and groups through your collective decisions. And if I can echo some words that I used last year, I'd urge you to disagree agreeably. That's the end of my report, Deputy Mayor, but if I may just say one other thing as a personal capacity, I would like to thank you for the invitation to speak to my report this evening, and I'd like to thank South Tyneside Council for entrusting this important role as independent chair to me in 2018. It has been a pleasure to serve this community where I grew up, a community which in 1977 funded a 30-year-old musical instrument salesman without any qualifications to study for a degree in economics at Newcastle Polytechnic. Without that assistance, I would not have been here today. I thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you for that, Professor Wright. Is the report seconded? Okay. Are there any questions, or does any member wish to speak?
Could I ask a question and speak to the report?
I just need to finish the sentence first. Are there any questions, or does any member wish to speak to the report first? And please raise your hands first. Councillor Gibson, you were first.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Professor Wright. You did, I had quite a few notes here, you did outline some of the things for us. You're quite right and said, you know, 328 complaints, you know, from what was filed in South Tyneside over 5 years. That is a high number. You're right, I have looked at other councils, they're very, very low. So we must be doing something wrong. You did mention about code of conduct training. Should code of conduct training not be for everybody, including officers? Because many times I've worked with middle officers and they turn around and say, I've never worked with a councillor before. You know, so should it not be rolled out across the board? So, you know, because we all come from different political backgrounds here, we all come from different walks of life. And terminologies, you know, some of us are teachers in other aspects, some work down coal mines, some shipyards, and sometimes you're right, terminology may not mean what they are saying. It's because they're used to it, part of that culture, in the places to go, in the friends they have. But we must remember that councillors are the front line of democracy. We serve our communities with compassion Our accountability and the integrity is immense, and we're under a lot of pressure and scrutiny at times, which, you know, you can see. Complaints are weaponised and legitimate concerns are dismissed. This is one of the things we've got. Let's be clear, 328 complaints, 3% reach formal hearing. The cost must be financial, must be enormous, emotionally, and, you know, democratically has profound effects on the thing. Just 4 members were responsible for 139 complaints. That is a massive amount. Can you imagine the resources? You're quite right, in the times we're in austerity at the moment. But we must remember also, there is no statutory legal support for councillors. You know, councillors come in, you know, there's a lot of councillors elected to come off the street. They have no legal advice. They have no nothing. And the knowledge of it, and then the report of the Standards Board. We need something in place for councillors, which I'm writing to the National Association of Councillors to raise nationally, you know, because they've reinstated the pension scheme, as it was mentioned by Steve Reid, but they should have some form of legal responsibility for councillors, because councillors are not employees. We don't have HR. We don't have any representation, really, legally. So we do need some form of protection, even, you know, if we are guilty or if we've been accused wrong and it's sorted out, that's great. But at the end of the day, when the Shields Gazette suggests that councillors' views, complaints, a badge of honour is not only inflammatory, it undermines the very principle of public life. Councillors deserve legal protection, not public condemnation. We must ensure that the standards regime must be used not to silence or dissent, but uphold values and bind democracy together and uphold the Nolan principles. But thank you, and thank you, Professor Wright.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gibson. I've seen a few hands up, so I'll just take them in order. So, Councillor Hamilton first, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We, the Real Independents, welcome the report by the Independent Chair of Standards and take on board the comments and suggestions made. We do, however, have issues with certain parts of the report. Weaponisation of the process and confidentiality. We wish to make it clear that when we register a complaint, we do so out of necessity, not to be seen to be wanting to wear a badge of honour. Targeting this at independent councillors is totally unfair. At one stage, the council had 54 Labour councillors. Now we have a divide with other political groups who feel it necessary to question the norm. In previous years, nothing was contested and went through with a nod and without being challenged. I myself have had reason to register complaints and most certainly do not go shouting from the rooftops to all and sundry about it. 328 complaints in over 5 years. If you break it down, it equates to about 5 a month. And it has to be noted that out of these 328, 304 of these complaints are closed, leaving only 24 outstanding. We, the Real Independents, do respect the Mayor and the procedures of the authority, but on occasion it may be necessary to seek advice or complain about the treatment we sometimes receive at council meetings. We've been called clowns and our education brought into scrutiny. I pride myself on the sound education I received in my continuous efforts to further educate myself when dealing with council business. It also has to be noted that the Real Independent councillors have taken part in numerous training sessions when work commitments allow. We all welcome an early response to complaints and not to have the sword of Damocles hanging over our heads for longer than is necessary, as I am led to believe that some of these complaints have been outstanding for years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, can I just ask you, which I've asked numerous mayors over the last few years, and every one of them is refused or ignored. In the Constitution, it says if a councillor needs to go over 3 minutes, the Mayor can use his discretion. Can I request, in case it goes over 3 minutes, for the first time ever in 6 years, you allow me another couple of minutes, Please. You, not the monitoring officer. You.
No, it's my first meeting, so I'm just,
Thank you.
I need to get advice.
I'll not be able to see for tears if you say yes.
Well, everyone's been asked to speak to 3 minutes, so please
I
keep
might
it to
do
3
it in
minutes.
3. I might do it in 3. I'll do my best.
We'll see how you get on, but we've got a long agenda, so I'd like everyone to
I
keep to 3
understand
minutes.
that because I've cut the amount of meetings down. Thank you. So, this report by the independent chair. First of all, I'll repeat, I'm on the Standards Committee. I've been the best customer at the Standards Committee, which I'm not proud of. Yeah, I don't think anyone's been up twice to the Standards Committee. But this report, I am absolutely shocked at it from the independent chair. The first and main reason is because this chair's got another 8 months in position. Now, I understand anyone at the end of that tenure doing a report and slating what's went on. But slating people, and I'll go through it, slating people when they've still got 8 months to work with them people isn't good. It isn't good. I'm going to be on that Standards Committee till May, unless I resign, or unless whatever happens. And we've got to work with somebody who has pretty much targeted different ones when I'm going to go through that, in my opinion. Now, under section 34.3, which gets quoted to me on a regular basis by the Mayor, it states, a councillor who speaks, and don't forget, Mr Mayor, it's not just councillors in this constitution, it's co-opted members as well who sign the code of conduct, not just councillors. So a councillor who speaks at any meeting will not accuse anyone, member or otherwise, of improper motives or use offensive expressions. Right? Then you go on to our proud values, and I'll only quote 2 of them, P for professional or for respectful. This report, in my opinion, which I'll go through in a minute, isn't professional, isn't respectful. You go on to the report and you look at page 48. What the independent chair is saying is, I have sought to remain unbiased and impartial in my role as independent chair. It is appropriate that I write reports as an individual and not on behalf of the Standards Committee. We all need to understand, we cannot take our councillor hat off and put it back on. As we find at the Standards Committee, we can get sanctioned if we're given the impression. So nobody has got the power to take the hat on and put it off. The title of the report is Independent Chair, not an individual that cannot come under the Code of Conduct and has got a free rein to say things. The next section of the report that concerns us is page 33, weaponisation of the process. This is the independent chair's words. There are some who appear to see it as a badge of honour, an indicator that they are working for their community. Such sentiments are wrong and are to be rejected. However, for some councillors, especially independent councillors without a party organisation supporting them, the publicity value of being subject to complaints can outweigh the embarrassment. Them are bad accusations of somebody who's supposed to be impartial. It's not saying Labour, it's not saying Green, it's saying independents. Then you look at page 80 of the report, and it's titled Selection of Standard Committee Members. In it states, but following some difficult meetings and noting that being found to have breached the Code of Conduct, the Council's Code of Conduct, is not a barrier to membership of the committee, the Council might want to consider, again, the way it selects and assesses the suitability of members for particular committees.
That's your 3 minutes, Councillor Robertson. If you'd like to
One
sum
more
up.
minute, please, if you don't mind.
No, you need to sum up.
Right,
Everybody gets 3 minutes.
Final comment, if you don't mind, on that, what I've just said about selection of Standards Committee membership. This camera records this, so it's finished when I shut my mouth, but it's recorded. That paragraph I've just read out to you targets one person. There's only one person on the Standards Committee that's had sanctions. That targets me. That's out of order by an independent chair.
That's the conclusion. Councillor Francis.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. And I would like to thank the independent chair and the members of the committee, if it's not an oxymoron, for the thankless task that they undertake. I'd like to draw attention to the corporate complaints that were mentioned in the report and in your speech, and that definitely shows a positive trend. For all of the doom and gloom and cynicism about councils, and maybe this council in particular, that is hard data that we're getting something right, or at least we're getting fewer things wrong. Sadly, I don't think you need to read the standards report to see evidence of complaint-worthy behaviour, which simply brings all of us into disrepute. In Part E, the Chair's observations mentions verbal attacks on council officers, and I'm especially troubled by verbal attacks on officers, often having no right of reply. And I think it's really clear, every employee of the council, whether you're a frontline waste services member of staff, all the way up to leadership and director level, every member of staff should feel safe and supported in the workplace, free from bullying, harassment and personal attack, either in person or on social media. Anyone not in line with that, in my view, is operating on double standards and hypocrisy. I support the Chair's remarks, and I quote the report, it says, "I believe public confidence would be enhanced by having a lay independent member as the committee's vice chair," and I would hope that that is taken seriously by Constitution Committee in the coming year. I note with dismay that in another local authority in the region, they're actually taking steps to make their complaints process less accountable, less open, and put key decisions that would be otherwise taken by members of staff or independent members in the hands of the ruling group. And I think that's a road to a bad place that we don't want to go. There are sometimes comments online and sometimes perhaps even in the chamber questioning the impartiality of the process and of the committee, but the facts in the report tell a different story. The numbers of complaints that have been upheld that are noted in the report, 6 against Labour members, 3 against opposition members. So it's not accurate or fair or true to claim that the committee is biased in their approach or in their rulings. It was mentioned that a small number of councillors are both the source and subject of the vast majority of complaints. Complaints made against 4 councillors and made by 4 councillors. And I'm sure I'm not the only person in the room who's wondering, is it maybe the 4 same councillors that we're talking about? We've heard the Treasury Management Report tonight, and all local authorities up and down the country are in a bleak position in terms of finances. And if we're concerned about waste, if we're concerned about excess, if we want to ease the pressures on cost, pressures on time, it seems to me we need to accept responsibility for the consequences of our actions and avoid wasting thousands of pounds and hundreds of hours of staff time. All we need to do to avoid that is to stop the tit for tat, stop the weaponisation of the process, and most importantly, behave and communicate with respect and show understanding of the processes, rules and institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Francis. Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Graham, for your report. You paint a grim picture of the standards within South Tyneside Council, and lately I've come to believe you were given an impossible task, a task you were never going to complete. Your report is most admirable and brave, but it doesn't paint the whole picture or why we find ourselves in this mess we're in, especially with the members' complaints. I will try to fill in the gaps. I have come to believe this has only happened recently over the last 4 to 5 years. When I asked you the question, when this council was made up of all but 1 Labour councillor, was it always so? No was the reply, you said. Labour normally dealt with their complaints internally, was the answer, so there wasn't the same number of counted published complaints. So what has changed, I asked myself. And I thought, isn't the answer obvious? For me, that change started to happen when people of South Tyneside got fed up and started to wake up and realise things were not going to get better if they continued to do the same thing time and time again each May. The change was a political choice. That choice in the shape of a...
Sorry, Councillor Brennan, can everyone just keep quiet while the councillor is speaking?
That choice in the shape of new councillors, all not from the same party, found that absolute power corrupted absolutely. I think your report is the way it is because those first few councillors found that the way the council was run and everything in it was rotten. It no longer served the people, but a select few at the top of the food chain who controlled it. These people serve themselves first. Below them, hand-picked officers from Labour-heavy committees appointed politically to positions help ensure that power and hold on to it longer. It's not just opposition benches that are rotten, but the whole system they have created to defend that power that is rotten as well. As these opposition councillors became more numerous, more things were discovered and fought and complained about. They received more kickback from a system used to the absolute power that was trying to hang on to it and defend it. Your high number of complaints are a reflection of that change, that power struggle. They are high because of that reason. I will finish with what I told you in my last email, that I predict standards will improve after next May, when a fairer, more open and transparent system is implemented. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts, you have your hand up as well.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just a quick one for myself, Mr Mayor. Listen to the report and hearing that the corporate complaints were going down. In my opinion, I don't think they are going down. I think the problem we've got is the monitoring officer and the chief executive are just refusing to accept them. That's all it is. Thank you.
Professor Wright, would you like to have the final word on this? If you'd like to respond to anything. Oh, sorry. Councillor, yeah, sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. I need to move seats. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And thank you, Professor Wright, for your very detailed report and for your exceptional service on the committee over the last many years. It is much appreciated. Just a clarification, the councillor Y in your report, thankfully, isn't me. I just the only person with a Y in surname. I thought I'd clarify that. But there's one point in your verbal report I really want to pick up on that really concerned me. I think the exact phrase you used was members potentially following party lines. I really do, that really concerns me about the integrity of the process, if that is a concern of yourself as the independent chair. And I'd urge any process that looks to review that, take particular note of that concern. But thank you for raising it tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I will endeavour to stay within the 3 minutes. I wish to thank Professor Wright for his very candid comments and his rather forthright report. However, I am concerned as an independent councillor, independent of other groups, of the due process. And I will say that I was cited in a document of this council recently, had no knowledge of it. The next day it was redacted and blocked out in a huge block of ink. The bird had flown by then, and it made it into the press. And I'm annoyed that I had to reply to that. It has implications come the next election. And somebody pointed the finger at me and said I was a witness against them. I clearly wasn't. And somebody also said I could potentially take legal action over this as well. So while I am of no doubt that Professor Wright has given good service with impartiality, good stewardship, somehow in May the wheel came off. And there is a lot of gameplay. I think it's a Pareto principle that says with 20% of your effort will bring 80% of your results. Get the telescope the wrong way and it won't. But you take those people who have repeatedly put in complaints, that needs an independent investigation. And no disrespect to Professor Wright, that should be viewed through peer review and people beyond the council. And it's no good hand-wringing and saying, hey, look at all of this. 7 years to get to this point. So, while I also welcome what Professor Wright's saying about having an independent vice chair, no. You need other peer review. I'm not detracting or subtracting from Professor Wright's work, but I think that needs to be undertaken by outside of the area, and that would be best practice. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Councillors, anyone else like to have raise any questions before we move on? No. Okay, Professor Wright, would you like to have the last word on this, if you'd like to respond to anything that's been said?
I honestly have nothing more to say than other than what I've written down. Individuals have made some comments about which I would make individually responses, but I don't have anything to say collectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Colleagues, do members note the report? Okay, thank you. Can I just take this opportunity to thank Professor Wright, who's been an excellent chair of standards these last few years, and to wish him well and to thank you from all your colleagues here. On to item 6. The next item of business is an information report from the Director of Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer, providing a Standards Committee update on a hearing which took place on the 4th of August. Can I ask Councillor, I believe, is it Taylor or Foreman? Is it Foreman who's going to be moving this report? Councillor Foreman, can you present the report, please?
It is me. Mr. Mayor, on the 4th of August 2025, a hearing before Standards Committee took place concerning a complaint that a member had breached the member's code of conduct in his use of the council's email system and the contents of some of those emails. At the hearing, which the member did not attend, the committee heard evidence from the investigator of the complaint and asked a number of questions about his methodology and conclusions. After deliberations, whilst the committee did not uphold the majority of the matters complained of, it did conclude that the member had breached the code in 4 respects as set out in the report. The committee issued a formal censure in respect of the breaches it found, issued a requirement that the member undertake mandatory training, but did not make any recommendations that the council consider imposing any additional sanctions. Standards Committee also directed that its decision should be presented to council for information only, and I therefore present the report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Is the report seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor. Are there any questions, or does any member wish to speak to the report? Councillor Robertson? Oh, they're not? Yeah, I've got it down. Is that? Just spare with a second, please. Yeah, starting now, yeah. Sorry, just spare with a second, please. Okay. Sorry, it's questions only on this report. So have you got a question to raise?
Questions, can I just, a point of order, right? If you look at the agenda, Mr. Mayor, it says to consider a report. It doesn't say questions only, it says to consider a report. And that's what we should be doing, the same as what we've just done with item 5. It says it there in black and white.
So the advice I've got is it's questions only on this report.
Why are you saying it's questions only when it says to consider? You cannot just change it, man.
I haven't changed it, that's the advice that I've got in front of us.
You what?
That's the advice, it's questions only on this report. Have you got a question you'd like to ask on the report?
Right, I'll ask questions on it. Right? My God. So, if you look at paragraph 11 of the report, it states, the committee also noted that the conduct complained of took place several years ago, only coming to light in response to a subject access request which was made some time afterwards. The question I've got is, in the Constitution, it states criteria to be considered by the monitoring officer, and there's a list there. And one of the lists says, is it from something that happened so long ago, there would be little benefit doing anything about it now? My question is, why did this council, why did the previous monitoring officer accept a complaint that's in black and white 7 years ago, right? A complaint that the criteria should have knocked out instead of spending 30,000. Why did we do that? That's question 1.
I can't answer your questions.
You've said I can ask questions, Shane. I've got 3 minutes, right?
You don't get time for questions, it's just specific questions that you need to speak to. Councillor Kilgood, did you want to say anything? Did you have a point you wanted to raise? I saw your hand up.
Excuse me, what about me 3 minutes?
You don't get through, it's questions only.
Hey, it's getting worse in here, Shane. It's getting worse, mate, honest to God.
Councillor Kilgood.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I'm not one to stifle debate, and actually the details of this complaint and the details of the documentation around that were all published for all to see. And, you know, I'm a member of Standards. It was my very first meeting. What I would say is if I would refer you to paragraph 22 where it says recommendations, Council is asked to note the decision, and that was the decision taken by that committee. And whilst I don't want to stop anyone asking questions if that is correct and proper, but it is just asked to note, and unless we follow the agenda as you suggested at the very beginning, Mr Deputy Mayor, then I think we'll be lost off.
Well, it's definitely to know, but I would advise that we can have questions, but with that in mind, we'll move on.
Can I do a personal explanation, please, on what the councillor has just said?
No, we're moving on.
Shane, I'm allowed to. Page 187. Will you ask someone, officer?
You need to stand up as well, Councillor.
Thank you. Page 187.12.14, please. Personal information.
Just wait a minute, Councillor, please.
Explanation.
Councillor, wait. Hold on, please.
Thank you.
Can you clarify what the point is quickly?
Right. The point is, when it's come to the council for information, what you need to do is look at the history of when reports have come to the full council. When it's an independent councillor, it's open to have a discussion and to slate them. When it's a Labour councillor, it's for information only.
That's not a point on any
That's
of the
exactly
rules.
what happened, Shane.
Okay, and it's Mr Deputy Mayor, not Shane. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so Council is recommended to note the decision of the Standards Committee in respect of complaint C154. Is that noted? Noted. Okay, thank you, colleagues. On to item 7, the next item of business is to consider a report of the Director of Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer regarding interim review of polling districts, places and stations 2025. I'll ask Councillor Foreman, lead member for Governance, Finance and Corporate Services, to present this report. Councillor Foreman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, the Council is required to carry out a review of polling districts, places and stations every 5 years, or when local government boundary changes make significant changes to the area. This interim review is being conducted following local government boundary changes, which has changed the boundaries of 12 wards and the names of 3 wards. The statutory review procedure has been followed. A notice of review was published to all members, MPs, candidates at recent election, and other interested groups or bodies were consulted. The options considered by Constitution Committee and agreed, and all representation received, are listed in Appendix 3 and 7 respectively. The new boundaries will come into effect at the all-out elections in May 2026. Members are asked to note the contents of the report and move the report, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that report seconded? Are there any questions, or does any member wish to speak to this report? Yes, Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I welcome the final ward boundaries for the new ward called Clevedon Village in East Borden. I'm speaking as a ward councillor of the old ward of Clevedon and East Borden. I'd like to give some constructive feedback on the consultation process. The original consultation proposal was totally unacceptable as it split a cohesive community, that is Clevedon Village, in 2. This would have caused confusion for residents who would have had to deal with 6 councillors instead of 3 in a distinct ward area. That this was even given a proposal is very concerning and casts doubts on the initial consultation process. I suggest an improvement would be that the initial process should have involved a cross-party working group to bring forward proposals in a democratic and transparent way. This approach has been done by several councils throughout the country. when considering ward boundary changes. There also needs to be better communications with residents, as when the initial proposals came out, not one resident I spoke to was aware of them. I know there was things done to try and publicise it, but it didn't work. And the whole purpose of a consultation process and the communication process is to make sure people are aware. That just didn't happen. So it was left to the Green Ward councillors to inform the residents by using a letter posted through every property in the ward. And this prompted residents to respond to the Boundary Commission and for them to propose the far more logical ward boundary that we have today. So it's just saying that what happened then could have been a travesty, because people, and I found that I didn't really become aware of it until too late in the process to really stop what was really a crazy proposal in the first place. So I'm really just saying that in future, in such types of consultations, there needs to be more thought given to how it's done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Does any other members wish to speak or ask any questions? No. So, colleagues, members are recommended to agree the recommendation of the Constitution Committee, so I'll read them out one by one. So, number 1, note the changes to the ward boundaries and names arising out of the Local Government Boundary Commission for England's review of South Tyneside. Is this noted? Okay, point 2, agree the changes to a polling district boundaries as a necessary consequence of the above changes to take effect at the next local government elections of May 2026. Do members agree? Agree. Point 3, authorise the Electoral Registration Officer to make the necessary changes to the Register of Electors. Is this authorised? Okay, and point 4, authorise the Corporate Lead, Legal and Governments to publish the decision of the Council with reasons, including all prescribed information in line with the requirements of the Electoral Administration Act of 2006. Is this authorised? Authorised. Okay, thank you, colleagues. To agenda item 8. The next item of business is to consider a report of the Director of the Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer regarding a report to appoint the membership of Pensions Committee and the Council Lead Officer to groundwork. So I'll ask Councillor Foreman, Lead Member for Governance, Finance and Corporate Services, to present this report. Councillor Foreman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, I hope you bear with me because there's a few... Members, since the last meeting of Borough Council in July, the need has risen to make 2 appointments to the Council's Pensions Committee. This committee is made up of members representing neighbouring authorities, trade unions and employer organisations who are part of the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund. The largest cohort of members on the committee, a group of 8 in total, are from South Tyneside, reflecting the fact that it is the administrating body for the fund. In response to the formulation of the Real Independent Group and the resignation from the committee of Councillor Brown, attempts have been made to appoint another independent member to the committee to replace Councillor Brown and to appoint a member of the Real Independent Group in order to maintain political balance. Unfortunately, neither independent member nor the members of the Real Independent Group feel able to take up a place on the committee, a role which is recognised to represent a significant commitment in terms of time. This means that a recalculation exercise has been required to ensure that the committee remains as politically balanced as possible with representation from across the chamber. Taking into account the fact that it won't currently be possible to appoint an independent member to the committee or a member of the Real Independent Group, in the circumstances, the calculations have indicated that the best way of maintaining political balance would be to allocate one of the vacant seats to the South Tyneside Alliance Group and the other to the Green Group, increasing their representation on the committee by 1 additional seat per group. The monitoring officer has been in contact with both independent members and group leaders about the proposed reallocation of seats, which represent the best way of maintaining political balance at the present time. Councillor Owens Palmer has been nominated to be the appointee from the South Tyneside Alliance Group, and Councillor Francis has been nominated by the Green Group. Council is asked to approve these nominations and make these appointments to the committee. In addition, it is proposed to change the Council's lead officer assigned to work with groundwork. It is currently the Director of Business and Resources, but it is considered more appropriate for the Head of Operations, Community and Place to undertake this role. He is already a long-standing trustee of groundwork and may be better placed to facilitate the close working relationship between the two organisations, given his knowledge of both. Mr. Mayor, I'll move the report.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Is the report seconded?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Are there any questions, or does any member wish to speak to the report? Councillor Francis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just realised as this was being read out, I maybe should have declared an interest that I haven't done yet, so I want to make sure I do that. Apologies, everyone, because I am a member of the local government pension scheme, so I'm a pension holder in the Tyneside Pension Fund. I'm not sure if I need to declare that, but in case I do, I'm declaring that now. Hopefully that doesn't affect my eligibility to take part in that committee. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for Councillor, that's noted. Councillor Dean.
Deputy Mayor, I've just realised I might have to give it down because I'm actually a trustee at Groundworks. I don't think it will make any difference, but I think I should have declared that.
Thanks, Councillor. Okay. If no one wishes to speak on this report, then it's recommended that the Council is asked to A. Note the information included in the report, including the reasons for the reallocation of places on pension committee being necessary. So is this report noted? Noted. Part B. Appoint Councillor Owens Palmer of the Star Group and Councillor Francis of the Green Group as member of the Pensions Committee. Are these appointments agreed? And Part C. Note and endorse the substitution of the Head of Operations, Community and Place, in place of the Director of Business and Resources as the Council's lead officer, representing the Council at the Groundworks Board. Is that noted and agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you, colleagues. On to item 9. The next item of business is to consider a report of the Director of the Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer regarding a request for dispensation for anticipated non-attendance at meetings. I'll ask Councillor Tracy Dixon, Leader of the Council, to present this report. Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Colleagues, this is a relatively straightforward report for our consideration that relates to a request on behalf of Councillor Thompson for a dispensation under the 6-month rule in Section 85 of the Local Government Act 1972, so as to excuse him from non-attendance at council and committee meetings during his period of illness. Colleagues, I hope that you will all agree that supporting a fellow elected member in this way is absolutely the right thing to do. It would be a shame if Councillor Thompson were to cease to be an elected member of this council during his illness, and I therefore recommend that a dispensation is granted by Borough Council today for Councillor Thompson. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Are there any questions? Does any member wish to speak to this report? Councillor Francis?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll be brief. Councillor Thompson and I were elected at the same time as each other in May 2019, and I knew from the first conversation we had that we fundamentally disagreed on a number of things, but we always did so in a very agreeable way, to quote Graham Wright earlier, Professor Wright. Although I do have differences with Councillor Thompson, I've always found him a hard-working ward councillor. He's often, the work that he's done in the parks, the cemeteries, and of course representing his residents on committees and in the council chamber. So I just wanted to pass on well wishes on behalf of the Green Group to Councillor Thompson and his family and support the request for a dispensation.
Thank you, Councillor Francis. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. At point 7 of the report, it says a copy of the dispensation application form is attached to this report. I don't know if it's just mine, but it wasn't attached.
Let me check that. I've been advised that should have been attached and it should be on everybody's papers.
Is it just mine or is it everybody's?
Sorry about that. It hasn't actually been attached. But we can distribute that to everybody after the meeting if you like.
Thank you. And the next point is, at page 450 of the Constitution, paragraph 3.6, it says allowances will be payable during periods of maternity or paternity leave. Right? I think we need to get something in the Constitution about dispensations, unless it's in there. Can you ask Mountain Officer, please?
Yeah, bear with me a second.
That's not aimed at this dispensation, it's aimed at asking the question about all. It should be covered. It should be there for us to see.
That'll be after something to bring up to the Constitution review rather than this, this report.
Well, to leave that point, I'd like the Mountain Officer, after this meeting, to email me and others to say what the Council's position is on dispensation and allowances, because whether it's the allowance or SRA as well, because, you know, any councillor could be on 18, 20 grand a year and need to know an answer for it and what we're going to do about it. Because if it goes to Long Grass Committee, you'll be there too, yeah. That's the Long Grass Committee.
Councillor Dixon would like to come in.
My final point on the report is, in paragraph 19, it says, who's mumbling there? Do they want to speak up? I can't hear them. Right. So paragraph 19, it says, an equality impact assessment is not required. I'd like to know why it's not required. If someone's getting a dispensation for ill health, surely the councillor or whatever, they're entitled to their equality impact assessment. Surely. Thank you.
In terms of the allowances, they remain because of dispensation, but any changes would have to be looked at in Constitution Committee. Councillor Dixon, were you going to come in?
Yeah, just coming in there, just following on Councillor Robertson, you do know that we have our working groups and we do take things forward. So obviously you've mentioned something there. It's not the Long Grass Committee, it's the Constitution Committee. You actually sit on it, so we'll ensure that that is actually incorporated in all of the work that we're doing to bring forward to the annual council in May 2026.
Can I respond to that, Mr. Mayor? I am on the committee, as you say. In my experience, it is the Long Grass Committee. Thank you.
Okay, that's not relevant. Councillor Roberts.
Truth, isn't it? I'm only speaking the truth.
Shush. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor, sorry. As much as I feel for Councillor Thompson not being here today, and he's been poorly for a while now, I think this has been brought a little bit too early for dispensation. He's still got another 2 months to go, and hopefully he's up and running by then. But I think yourself, if you're going to go to the 23rd of December, when he's 6 months up, you know, he's going to know more or less at the beginning of December whether he's going to be fit or not. I think yourself that, this is just my personal opinion, that if somebody's bad for 6 months, and once the 6 months is up, they've got to look for a dispensation, I think my own morals will turn around and say to me, I'm not going to be fit or well, and I would resign and put it into a by-election.
Well,
So I don't think you should be getting it after 6 months.
It's entirely up to the councillor when they submit to dispensation. This
I'm just
is
saying I've got the morals and principles.
This is the last one before the 6 months is up as well, so it is timely. Councillor, yeah.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. And yeah, as said at the next full Borough Council, I believe on the 15th of January, so this is the last opportunity to present this dispensation to the Borough. I'd just like to say, well, hopefully on behalf of SAG and of independent members generally, a great deal of thanks to Councillor Thompson for his exceptional service to this council. As from any political background, I must say I admire his dedication, his incredibly hard-working attitude towards the people of Westoe. He does them proud in all of his actions, and I do wish him a speedy recovery. Thank you.
We remain quiet when people are speaking as well, please. Any other member wish to speak on this report before we move on? Councillor Davies.
I think
his presence is most keenly felt on Treasury Management Report Day, as his tireless advocacy for debt reporting is a storied legacy that I'm sure he will lead, and the members opposite that have to respond to him and his continued persistence on that matter is something that he will he leaves as a legacy for this place. And I echo what everybody said. Do wish him well.
Councillor Owens-Palmer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I just say that having to take up the slack of some of Councillor Thompson's work in the Westow ward has made me personally realise just how hard that man does work and just how much effort he has put into being a councillor over the last 6 years. And I'd also like to add a little aside, trying to take away someone's allowances while they're sitting in hospital, I find particularly distasteful.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just would like to wish Councillor Thompson well and just give the council a quick update on his health. I last heard of his wife and daughter that he was recovering well, basically. He was starting to have feeling back in his damaged parts, and he was, day by day, was getting better and better.
Okay, we'll have to just not stray onto any kind of personal issues. Councillor Kennedy, as the last speaker, then we'll move on.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to say, I think I'd like to convey something that I think Glenn would like to be said. And I think on this occasion, Glenn would like to say that he is a proud, independent councillor and probably thankful that he's not a real independent. Thank you.
We'll move on. Okay, we're moving on now. Colleagues, Borough Council are recommended that dispensation be granted for Councillor Thompson. Okay, can we all sit? Are you going? Okay. That's agreed. But thank you, colleagues, and again, we wish Councillor Thompson well. Okay, item 10 is to consider a report of the Director of Place and Strategy regarding the Sustainable South Tyneside Strategy Annual Report 2025. Ask Councillor Ernest Gibson, Lead Member for Neighbourhoods and Climate Change, to present this report. Councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Chair. Mr Mayor, this report gives an update on our South Tyneside Sustainable Strategy. Since we declared a climate emergency in 2019, the Council has shown real ambition, leading by example, working with residents and delivering carbon-cutting projects. Early this year, we held a 5-day climate summit, bringing together people from across the borough in the North East and beyond. We showcased local net zero projects, Venge, Equinor, working with businesses to grow the green economy, encouraging communities to get involved. Local energy teams with schools, council staff and partners to shape our next stage of this strategy. The summit is another sign of commitment. Climate action shows that we are leading the way. Our work is getting noticed. Viking Energy Centre in Jarrow has won 2 national awards. We look to expand the decarbonisation network in Jarrow and Hebburn, and we explore more opportunities in public and private sector. We are promoting behaviour change through carbon literacy training by working with schools and with businesses. We've made big improvements to buildings, better lighting, better insulation, heating control, solar panels, cross-cutting and carbon technology. The whole borough now has energy efficiency streetlights, which uses half as much as electric, and it keeps people safe. Our network has cut carbon by 1,500 tonnes and keeps our homes warm. We have also installed 100 electric charging points across the borough. We are helping residents with cutting their energy bills and staying warm throughout the winter through our energy roadshows, and help them fund or improve and make sure the social our social housing is up to standard. We hit our first target of 25% reduction emission by 2023, but it's getting harder. We haven't hit our 2025 target, which we aimed for was 50% reduction. We continue to face many challenges, such as lower than expected development in low carbon accelerator and challenging of funding landscape. However, we are not acting alone, with all the local authorities facing the same issues and seeing the same challenges. There are still new opportunities in the North East. Carbon, nature-based marketplace, launched in June, let companies invest in local projects, helping us with energy efficiency and decarbonisation and social values. Our current strategy has run a 5-year course. We are moving forward with a statement of intent to take us to 2027, then our new strategy by 2030. The statement demonstrates the Council's commitment to protecting our residents from the effects of extreme weather on our borough and highlights the work tackling climate change, aligning with the existing strategy and ambitions of the Council. We also are planning our long-term approach to ensure the borough maximises its benefits of clean and green, thriving environment with residents for decades to come. Nationally, the Government has ambitious plans to decarbonise the grid through its Clean Power by 2030 strategy, and regionally, one of the combined authorities' missions is to make North East the home of the green energy. South Tyneside Council intends to play a key role in both. Our new strategy will focus on local needs, but will always fit the regional national plan. We want the projects for residents, for climate change, to make South Tyneside a better place for skills and also for jobs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Is the report seconded?
I will second that report.
Councillor Dawes. Are there any questions, or does any member wish to speak to the report? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I want to start by acknowledging the hard work of officers and the leadership of the lead member in steering South Tyneside sustainability agenda, hosting the climate summit and delivering projects like the Viking Energy Network and the Hebburn Energy schemes.
Sorry, Councillor Taylor, I think people are having difficulty hearing you. If you can maybe speak louder. Into people are having difficulty hearing you. If you can speak loudly into the microphone.
I'll start from the beginning then, shall I? Right. I want to start by acknowledging the hard work of officers and the leadership of the lead member in steering South Tyneside sustainability agenda, hosting the climate summit and delivering projects like the Viking Energy Network and the Hebburn Energy schemes show real commitment. And it's encouraging to see early carbon reductions and community engagement. As a Green Party councillor, I champion trees, open spaces and grassroots action. Mature trees are not just beautiful and vital for our ecosystems, but they are carbon capturing machines, providing clean air and cooling our urban areas. Yet the current strategy doesn't clearly protect our green belt, open spaces or mature trees from future development pressures. I urge the Council to make the preservation of our natural assets a central part of the next environmental growth strategy, alongside continued carbon reduction. Community action is another area where we can go further. While the Climate Summit engaged residents and businesses, there needs to be sustained support for local grassroots initiatives, from funding to advice and training, so that people on the ground can lead projects that make a real difference in their neighbourhoods. We've seen setbacks too. The Council fell short of its 50% carbon reduction target for 2025. Moving forward, we need clear, accountable targets, robust monitoring and transparent reporting so residents can see both progress and the challenges we face. Finally, climate action must benefit everyone, especially our most vulnerable communities. Initiatives should continue to focus not just on carbon reduction, but on health, equity and local economic resilience. In summary, while South Tyneside is on the right path, the next strategy must protect our trees and green spaces, empower communities and strengthen accountability. By doing so, we can ensure a greener, fairer and truly resilient borough for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Barclay.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Sustainable food practices hold significant importance in our efforts to combat climate change. The production, transportation and consumption of food are major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, placing considerable strain on our local and global environment. By prioritising sustainable approaches, such as reducing food waste, supporting local producers, and encouraging diets with a lower carbon footprint, we can deliver tangible environmental benefits while also safeguarding the health and well-being of our communities. Locally, our local commitment to sustainable food practices has been highlighted through the Sustainable South Tyneside Strategy and South Tyneside Health and Wellbeing Strategy. This is especially important given that nearly 3/4 of adults in South Tyneside are living with overweight or obesity. Only 1 in 5 meet the recommended 5-a-day fruit and vegetable intake, and 1 in 4 households in the North East face food insecurity. South Tyneside is proud to have joined the National Sustainable Food Places Network. Through our partnerships, we are uniting stakeholders to co-develop an action plan aligned with the Sustainable Food Partnership Framework. This collaborative effort is driving progress towards our goal of advancing sustainable food across the borough. The partnership is now actively working towards achieving bronze status in the Sustainable Food Places Award, which would open up further opportunities for South Tyneside. South Tyneside also took part in the North East Good Food Local project, which required local authorities across the region to conduct a self-analysis against a broad set of food system indicators. Notably, South Tyneside was the only authority in the North East to demonstrate leadership in the Food for the Planet theme. The insights gained through this benchmarking exercise have directly shaped the development of our Sustainable Food Action Plan. The Sustainable Food Action Plan for South Tyneside clearly showcases the wide range of projects happening across our area. Thank you.
Councillor Brown, did you have your hand up? Yep.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. It's commendable, the commitment to what is a climate emergency. Got a fine team. I learned a lot from Michael Vasey and the training delivered as a new councillor. It really is encouraging, and Michael himself has given qualification as to why there's a little bit of a plateau with the emissions at the moment for the second hike to the next part of the plan, and I wish the council well with that. But we also have to look at competing priorities, not least of all housing, the destruction of habitats. Council was referred to admirably this week in the Panorama programme with regards to the problems that we'll all face trying to deliver. And, you know, if you've got a government minister saying build, baby, build, which is a bit naff for a strapline, it really is, and then having to retrench on how the government is going to meet its commitment for housing, destruction of habitats, it's not good for the environment, it isn't good for mental health and community tensions. So while I wish the government well with its project, my belly tells me they're not going to hit 1.5 million houses in time. People are good-natured, they'll rationalise it and say, well, okay, we'll settle for the increase, but it's not going to be that target. So what I urge is that there are other tipping points coming along. I'm not being alarmist, but they are. And despite all the initiatives in the area, in the region, in the country, the clock continues to tick. And we have to be aware of what is practicable and what looks like diktat from the same housing minister to come back to the borough and say, you will do it. The relaxed brain works best, and it won't be at the threat.
Councillor Chin. Sorry, Councillor, can you put your microphone on?
Sorry, I think I switched it on and off at the same time, sorry. Did you hear the first part? Shall I start again?
No, I heard the first
Okay. In order to create a sustainable environment, both established and planned communities need to either include all the infrastructure required or have efficient public transport to access these facilities, as well as schools, doctor surgeries, etc. Communities need green spaces, community halls and sports facilities. A sustainable South Tyneside won't be a reality if it is purely about building houses and does not include plans for all community needs. It is very clear that children need facilities such as youth centres in order to develop into well-rounded adults. And just two questions. The first one, should I assume that because I'm not quite sure what it is, should I assume that the new environmental green strategy will reflect the amazing support we received for our COP15 motion, and that it will include how to engage and empower residents to make the transition to a more sustainable lifestyle? And the second question, now this is something I possibly should know, but I don't, obviously because I'm asking it. With regards to CO2, are the emissions created by the incinerator, which are caused by South Tyneside waste, included in our figures? Thank you.
Councillor Gibson, I'll let you respond to all the questions at the end once everyone's had a word to say. Yeah, Leanne, we'll go around and then you can respond at the end. After everyone's spoken, we can respond. Councillor, yeah.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the report. I just want to pick up on a note in your report about our progress on delivering more sustainable homes to our residents. With a significant proportion of our housing stock with an EPC rating of D or below, it's a total of 6,870 homes, and the previously mentioned national funding challenges that are approaching, I have concerns that the residents of South Tyneside might be left behind. I'm wondering if the lead member could clarify how his national government expects to deliver on its manifesto promise to save families hundreds of pounds, slash fuel poverty and get Britain back on track to meeting its climate targets while stripping some local authority budgets to barely cover statutory services. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Kilgore.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I wasn't going to speak on it, but I think Councillor Taylor has rather invited me to do that. Thank you. I would like to welcome the report, and I'm very grateful to Councillor Gibson for presenting it. Anything regarding this nature and the nature of the report that is well intended is really well received. So I'd like to say thank you. What I would also like to point out, and it is a political point, that our reform-led council in Durham, and I think it was referred to, but all but naming the party leading that council, are heading in the opposite direction, where we are very well intentioned in the right direction, I believe. My intention to speak is really around a new MIQ, which is coming up to do with the housing land supply and delivery, certainly for Felgate, which will appear on the agenda on the 20th of November. It's specifically about air quality and public health. It came directly due to the challenge of our Mr Green, who is in the gallery, and I'd like to thank him very much from the Save the Felgate Greenbelt group. And I just would like members, and certainly anyone around who has an interest in this, and I think we all should have, is that the narrative around it is there, the questions are set, and I would urge everyone to answer or put their submissions in by Tuesday, the 11th of November. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd like to draw our attention to figure 5, page 19 of the report. This is a direct result of our procurement decisions to renew our fleet, but to renew our fleet with ICE. we've got a whole series of Amazon vans that serve our community that are completely electrified. We had a steady reduction over the bulk of this report and then a dramatic spike. We had the opportunity in this procurement process that we've just gone through for our fleet to electrify it. And we haven't. And that, amongst possibly a couple of other key decisions, has led to us missing our target. And I feel that we really did not understand the implication of those decisions when that came to Cabinet. The impact assessment, I think, was probably clearly lacking as one of the reasons has led us to miss our target. Further around what we've said about travel, though, we had the opportunity, again, with a sizable amount of funding, to fund a scheme that would have incentivised active travel throughout the borough. But the scheme that was chosen was primarily for leisure travel. And that's led to lasting impacts, not only to our seafront, but to the community that lives alongside that. And we had enough money that we could have properly connected people to their place of work, to their place of commerce, and to their homes. And we failed to make that step. We didn't design a project to spend that money effectively. And it's key decisions like that that lead to the backsliding on our climate, on our reduction in CO2 emissions across the borough. And we have done some great things over the last 5 years, but we continue over the most recent times, when we've had capital available to us, to make negative decisions. Thank you.
Councillor Herbert. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Gibson, I thank you for that report. It has some excellent ambitions, but it's light on practical solutions to achieve them. It's concerning that the government's emissions have actually increased and they are way off target at the moment. One reason for the change is shifting to a less green energy provider. One way to counter this would be for the council to generate more renewable power itself, which I'm sure you would agree with. For instance, this could be done by installing solar panels on council roofs and over car parks. I am on the cross-party Climate Change and Ecological Emergency Working Group, which just met the other day. And I say it's a shared sense of frustration that every idea we came up with was stymied by the lack of funding. So there's just not money, as fellow councillors said, to do anything but the essential services. So that's actually hitting the government's targets that they're given the country to perform and execute. Now, I looked at the LGA and they've produced a document called A Guide to Financing Green Ambition. And in that document, it recognises that previous and present governments' austerity policies have reduced funding available for schemes that we might want to bring forward. But it has recommended a number of alternative funding sources. And one is the use of community municipal bonds that are already being used by 17 local authorities in the country and have raised millions of pounds for sustainable projects. They are issued via a crowdfunding platform that allows local people to invest in local renewable energy. And a local person can invest as little as £5 in their local community to increase renewables in their area. And every scheme that's come up throughout the country has been funded. So they are very, very popular. Or an alternative to this, so by using this funding, we could have a self-generated energy, which must be a cost-effective way of reducing carbon emissions by using solar panels. Or one alternative to that could be that you could engage a company that would install, maintain and administer the solar panel installation at no cost to the council, but then could sell electricity back to the council at a discounted rate. So there would be no upfront cost for the council, but they would get the benefits of cheaper electricity and green electricity. And that could be done for car parks, and several companies would engage in a bidding process to try and get that, I'm sure. So without unlocking funding sources, it is hard to see how the council will reach its carbon reduction targets. And I ask that a cost-benefit analysis be carried out on the alternatives recommended by the LGA. Thank you.
Councillor Gibson, would you like to respond to the questions that have been raised?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Just a quick response. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Brown did mention about biodiversity. You mentioned about the green spaces. That's all within my report. That's all within my strategy, South Tyneside strategy. You know, we had the 5-day conference. We talked with partners. We're working with schools. We're even bringing toolkits in. Within the next few weeks, you'll all be getting an email. There's an online Northeast local nature strategy coming live with its consultation, because we're working in partnership with Gateshead, Sunderland. Gateshead's the lead authority. We're working with Sunderland and South Tyneside. So that'll be coming online. So I hope you put the input in to it. That is one of the key things. But we're restoring nature, biodiversity. We're looking at BNG sites, you know, where you mentioned about people developing. BNG sites is important to offset that in certain locations. Professionally looked at, reassessed, everything. The finance side, I'm not 100% on that. So, Councillor Davey, I'll get your response, a written response, if that's okay. And Councillor Yard, a written response, because there was a lot there about housing, and as you know, we did discuss housing the other day, retrofit, but at the end of the day, you know, us as politicians, we thought this year we're riding on a wave, lots of, you know, we're talking about energy, but the combined authorities, you know, is going to look at local energy as well, and they are going to be key for South Tyneside, because we're part of that. But I will come back to this, and I think we're going to have a members' comms at some point to update you on the strategy. So watch your emails and you will get a response. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Sorry, Councillor Gibson has the last word on the discussion. You can ask the point of clarification.
I assume it's ground and grey sites that we usually it's all being looked at. It's in the strategy.
Okay, thank you. So, colleagues, there are a number of points to read out. I'll go through them one by one, just to note. So, firstly, Borough Councillor asked to note the progress made in delivering the aims of the Sustainable South Tyneside Strategy 2020 to 2025. Is that noted?
Noted.
Secondly, endorse the strategic direction set out in this report, recognising the importance of the Statement of Intent 2025 to 27 in maintaining momentum and preparing the borough for the next phase of strategy development. Is that agreed?
Not agreed.
It's the dissenting voice, and we'll have to have a vote on that. Yeah, it'll be a show of hands. So can I ask all in favour to raise their hands, please? All in favour on the second point? And all opposed? Are there any abstentions? Okay, so we have 25 in favour, 17 against and 2 abstentions, so that point is passed. So point 3, approve the use of the Statement of Intent 2025 to 27 as outlined in Appendix 3 as the guiding framework for the interim phase of work. Is that approved? Finally, note that this interim phase will lead into the development of the longer-term environmental growth strategy 2027 to 2030, which will include wider engagement and consultation and will be brought back to Cabinet and Council for formal approval. Is that noted? Noted. Okay, thank you, colleagues. Item 11 is to consider any questions received under Procedure Rule 8. We've received one question for Council under Procedure Rule 8 for our meeting today. The question is from a member of the public regarding reduction of Council meetings, and I'll read this question out. Who made the decision to suggest the reduction in the number of full Council meetings for this year, 2025 to 26, that was voted upon at full Council on 13th of May 2025? Do you feel that only having roughly half the number of meetings will have any effect on encouraging democracy in South Tyneside? So Ms Long will receive a written response to her question within 7 days of this meeting. So in item 12, it's to deal with the petitions received under Council 9 Procedure Rule. So under Council Procedure Rule 9, we've received one petition under Council Procedure Rule 9. As per the Council Procedure Rules, we will not debate the petition today. Councillor Owens-Palmer will present the petition in accordance with the process set out in the Constitution. The petition will then be referred to the appropriate body. Councillor Owens-Palmer, please present the petition.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Ms Dorothy Hammond has submitted a petition to the Council requesting an urgent meeting, consultation or hearing with Westall residents who are opposed to the proposed House of Multiple Occupation at 212 Westall Road, South Shields. It would be the third such property in that block of 13 houses. The petition was submitted well in advance of today's meeting, and at the time of submission, it had accrued 18 signatures, all of whom live in the borough. I can confirm that since its submission in August, the petition has now received 185 signatures so far.
Thank you, Councillor Owens-Palmer. In accordance with Council Procedure Rules, the petition stands referred to the Director of Place Strategy as the appropriate body for further consideration. There are no petitions presented to the meeting of Borough Council held on 13th of May 2025 for update. So the next item of business is to receive motions under Council Procedure Rule 10. There are 3 motions to be considered under Rule 10 today. I'll ask the proposer of the motion to move the motion. They may speak for up to 5 minutes. I'll then ask whether the motion is seconded. The seconder may speak for up to 3 minutes or reserve the right to speak later in the debate. The motion will then be open to debate by members who may each speak for up to 3 minutes and may move amendments. Any amendment must be relevant to the motion, and only one amendment will be moved and discussed at any one time. If an amendment is carried, the motion as amended takes the place of the original motion and becomes a substantive motion, to which any further amendments are moved. So motion 1, Driving Test Centre, has been submitted by Councillors S. Dean, G. Kilgore, S. Traynor, N. Maxwell, L. Proudlock, P. Dean, M. Clare and K. Maxwell. Councillor Stephen Dean, please present your motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm actually the proposer of this motion. The need for South Shields Driving Centre to be reopened is imperative, with the current test backlog and waiting time is an unprecedented high. The Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency are recruiting more driving examiners to tackle this current crisis. The reopening of South Shields Driving Test Centre would allow DVSA to increase this even further. The facility is still owned by DVSA, and it would make sound economic sense to utilise this government asset, which is currently being allowed to become derelict. The benefits of people of South Tyneside would be immeasurable and reintroduce the endless social, economic, employment opportunities that were taken away from them when this driving test centre closed in 2022. South Shields Driving Test Centre, which is in the Bede ward I represent, was a vital part of the community and gave great social and and employment opportunities to the people of this area, and has been a great loss to this borough since its closure in 2022. Not only would reopening the huge benefit of the residents of South Tyneside, as well as easing the burden on Sunderland, but in the current climate and test backlog, it would also allow extra capacity for more examiners to be recruited and support DVSA efforts to clear the unprecedented backlog. If they don't reopen South Shields Driving Centre, I don't know how DVSA are ever going to take the backlog across the two boroughs of South Shields and Sunderland, which is now recruited to capacity if they don't reopen South Shields Driving Centre. It's a case of, so what the council are going to resolve or is to instruct the Chief Executive of South Tyneside Council to write to Chief Executive of the DVSA supporting the call to open South Shields driving test centre. Then also to instruct the Chief Executive of South Tyneside to Council to write to the Minister for Future of Roads supporting the call to reopen South Shields DTC. Thirdly, instruct the Chief Executive of South Tyneside Council to write to the Secretary of State for Transport supporting the call to reopen South Shields DTC. And finally, instruct the Chief Executive to write to Kim McGuinness, the North East Mayor, to support the efforts of campaigners seeking to the reopening of South Shields DTC, and to ask that the Mayor Kim McGuinness writes to Secretary of State for Transport, Minister for Future of Roads, and to the Chief Executive of DVSA, seeing the reopening of South Shields DTC. I hope you will all agree with this and vote in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is this motion seconded?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd like to second the motion, but I'd also like to reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Okay, the motion is now open to debate by members. Do any members wish to ask a question, speak on the motion or move an amendment? Councillor Stonehouse.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I support the motion to reopen South Shields Driving Test Centre. Now, for the following reasons. Some would choose the ideal option to use public transport, reduce parking, save emissions, etc. But there are times when this option is not in our control. Some employers don't invest in their staff. They save money and time by requesting their employees applying for jobs have driving licenses. I asked students who were taking driving lessons their opinion that the driving test centre on the Bede Trading Estate should it be relocated or stay in Sunderland, and these were some of their answers. Driving tests cost £63 and the waiting list for my test, which was requested in September 25, is April 26, unless you're lucky enough to get a cancellation. Another, it would be so much better to be tested in our local area, because now you pay for more lessons to familiarise yourself with Sunderland routes. The next one, I feel ready and confident for my driving test, but I must continue to pay for lessons until my test date. It's so unfair and it's costly. So the data from a Freedom of Information request to the Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency by the AA Driving School shows the average wait time to book a driving test has steadily risen in the last year from 14.8 weeks in February of 24 to 20 weeks in February of 25. Now, for all the above reasons, I support this motion.
Councillor Gibson.
Mr Mayor, I support this motion. It's about sustainability. It's about reducing carbon emissions. It's about jobs. You know, people's futures could depend on this. Waiting 8 months. You know, you get some young person comes along, just qualified, could have qualified as a solicitor, could have qualified as a doctor, anything. But they need that driving test to get that job, once in a lifetime chance, and waiting 8 months is a long time. But it's the cost. I mean, it's the cost to the environment as well that we've got to look at. And these people have to go out the borough. It's absolutely atrocious. And the costs in here it's horrendous. I remember when I took my driving lessons, I think they were only £2.50. And the price in here was 50 pence a gallon. I remember filling my motorbike up going to pit, 50 pence a gallon. Absolutely ridiculous, the prices in here, but that's years ago. But no, I support this motion 100%. Reducing carbon emissions, it's about employment, it's about people's future, and I think it's imperative we have the test centre back.
Okay, Councillor, would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd like to say I'd support this motion fully. Just this week, a young lady that's very dear to me failed her driving test, unfortunately. She's reapplied and can't get a follow-up date now until April, which quite frankly is disgusting. We talk about the environment. She currently works at the Metro Centre, and to get there and back, because the public transport don't have good links for her and the times of day that she has to go there, her mum and dad are currently having to transport her. So instead of her now being able to drive in her own car there, park it up for the day and then drive it back 2 journeys, we're now having to do 4 journeys whereby she's transported to work and then somebody goes back to pick her up, which means that car is doing double the miles, double the pollution, you know, and we're talking about caring about the environment, you know, apart from the fact that we've got to travel out of the area and have these learners drive from South Tyneside to start learning routes in Sunderland or wherever they've chose to do these their training. You know, everything about this is wrong when we have a perfectly good training centre on our doorstep that's fallen into disrepair. Thank you.
Councillor Coombs.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I too have spoken to a constituent who was a driving instructor, and he reported pre-COVID, before the test centre closed, a 3 to 4 week waiting period for his customers to have the test. Now it's in excess of 6 months. People are getting up at 6 a.m. to try and book a test, I believe, online, and to try and get that. He also reported, which is quite disturbing, that these tests are being bought up in block form in bookings and then resold on the black market at inflated prices to people as well. So the sooner we get that test centre back, the better. I will support the motion.
Councillor Dean, as the original proposer, do you wish to reply to the debate? Oh, sorry, Councillor Kilgore, yeah, I'd like to speak as well.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'm really grateful to colleagues for their full support and their comments around this. It is really important. I last communicated with Vicky Holt on Tuesday evening to see if she wanted us still to proceed with this. So she's provided all of the data and had every input into the formation of this motion, and I thank her for that support and assistance. Despite her unstinting efforts and others in support, and all of the driving instructors, I dare say, in our borough, she was recently advised that despite all of the campaigning, that there was an absolute categoric refusal to reopen the centre. However, in progressing with the motion, we stand resolute that every effort should be made to seek its reopening for all of the reasons that have been cited in the motion and for all of the reasons colleagues have supported that this evening. So, Mr Deputy Mayor, I hope and I sense, hopefully, that this is a motion upon which we can all agree, and I second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dean, would you like to reply to the debate?
No, I just... thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody who has put these things forward and agreeing with everything. So I've just got to, I would thank everybody for their comments.
Okay, thank you. Is this motion agreed? This motion is agreed. So on to motion number 2, Paper Smart South Tyneside, ending virgin paper use across the council. It's been submitted by Councillors Rachel Taylor, Davies, Francis, Curtis, Jane, McEwen, Herbert, Stonehouse and Ford. Councillor Taylor, please present your motion.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I want to begin by acknowledging the officers who support our sustainability work and the leadership of lead member Councillor Ernest Gibson, whose guidance has helped shape our climate emergency agenda. Today, I stand here to support the Paper Smart South Tyneside motion, a simple, practical and high-impact step that will reduce our carbon footprint, save resources and demonstrate that this council acts on its climate emergency commitments. We all know the facts. The pulp and paper industry is a major contributor to industrial emissions, and every tonne of virgin fibre we avoid reduces pressure on forests and lowers life cycle carbon emissions. UK DEFRA factors show that recycled paper has roughly 20% lower carbon footprint than virgin paper, and that's before we even account for savings from digital-first practices. This is not just about numbers, it's about consistency, credibility and leadership. Continue to purchase virgin paper when recycled alternatives are readily available is inconsistent with our climate emergency commitments and sends a wrong message to our residents, our partners and our suppliers. Other public bodies have already led the way. Ireland's Office of Government Procurement moved to 100% recycled office paper in 2024. If it works there, it can work here. This motion is clear and achievable. First, we establish a digital-first culture across all committee papers, reports and internal communications. Hard copies will only be provided when absolutely necessary. Second, when printing is unavoidable, we mandate 100% recycled, eco-labelled, chlorine-free paper across all council sites. This approach is financially responsible. Recycled paper is competitively priced. Bulk procurement narrows the difference further, and any minor costs are offset by reduced print volumes and better management practices. The result will be real carbon, water and energy savings while supporting a circular economy and practice. Implementation is straightforward. Procurement specifications will update immediately. Members and staff will receive training on digital tools. Print usage will be monitored monthly, with reporting back in 9 months on progress and further opportunities. And we will publicly communicate this change, encouraging our partners and suppliers to match our standards. This is a low-cost, high-impact action that demonstrates leadership in practice. Not just words, it is visible, measurable and scalable. It shows our residents that South Tyneside Council is serious about climate action, making sustainability part of everyday operations. I urge you to support this motion. Let's make South Tyneside digital first, paper smart and environmentally responsible. By voting for this motion, we can deliver real savings, reduce emissions and set a standard for the public sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is a motion seconded?
Seconded.
Would you like to speak now or reserve the right?
Reserve the right.
Okay. Well, the motion's open to debate, but we've actually received an amendment from Councillor Barclay. So, Councillor Barclay, would you like to present your amendment?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. First, I'd like to say thank you to the opposition for bringing forward this motion. Our commitments to the environment at South Tyneside Council are second to none, and this motion and the widespread support for it reflects the commitment of the Chamber to continually improving our environmental practices. It is critical that we reduce our reliance on virgin paper, move to digital-first working and cut emissions. The amendment removes Resolution 4, which would have ended the printing of agenda packs and committee papers by default. However, we must also ensure that no member is excluded from fully participating in council business. Some members, for accessibility reasons, may still require printed papers. Whether due to visual needs or any other accessibility needs, it is vital that we retain flexibility. This amendment does not weaken the motion's environmental ambition. We will still move to digital by default. We will still end the use of virgin paper, and we will still set high recycled standards. But it's important that we safeguard accessibility and ensure that every councillor can do their job effectively. By making this small change, we allow digital first to be the norm, but with paper copies available where genuinely needed. This is a fair, inclusive and balanced approach. Colleagues, this amendment is about making sure our sustainability commitments go hand in hand with accessibility and inclusion. I urge you to support this amendment so that the motion remains ambitious but also workable for all members. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is the amendment seconded?
Seconded. Can I speak?
Yes, you'd like to speak now? So the Councillor Gibson who's seconding the amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, you can speak.
I'll reserve the right to speak, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Do any other members wish to ask us a question or speak on the amendment? Councillor Lamont, yeah.
Thank you, Deputy. I'd like to support this amendment, particularly because I think it pays attention to the Low Quality Public Sector Duty and the Equality Act, particularly around protected characteristics, and that's what this amendment has done.
Thank you. Councillor Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm not sure if we're maybe just talking at cross purposes slightly here, because the wording that's being removed talks about by default. So that there would still be potentially provision for people who needed paper printed copies. And I'm aware that, you know, we mentioned about accessibility needs. Certainly there are some people for whom digital actually allows them to access things that they would find more difficult with paper, whether through audio readers or easier magnification. So I don't argue with the fact that some people would request and require a printed copy, but all the original motion is just saying not to provide that by default, so that would still be available for whoever needs it. So I'm not sure if we're really at odds with each other here.
Thank you. Councillor Owens-Palmer.
Thank you. Thank you for that motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would oppose the amendment partly because of the reason Councillor Francis has just given, because it does just say by default, so you won't automatically get a printed copy, but it will be available for anyone who does request it. But partly because I'd be quite reluctant to take out that that commitment to supporting by training and device support members who need it, because I think there's a lot of people who possibly would be able to do without a paper copy if they were given that support. And I think it would be worsening the motion if we removed it. Thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
I'm opposing the amendment also on the grounds that I think it's redundant. I think it's also been a kind of miscommunication, because I agree with Councillor Francis that by default doesn't imply under no circumstances. It's just not the default. And so there's still provision for anybody who has additional support needs to kind of get a paper copy. So I think we're both agreeing on the situation, but just with different terminology. And so I don't think the amendment's needed.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Gibson, is there a seconder? Would you like to?
Yeah, could I second it? I know a lot of things have been said. If we were to move to this option entirely, we would risk excluding colleagues from full participation in council business. This amendment strikes a balance, the right balance. To keep this motion ambiguous, committed to digital first, recycling standards and a strong report, but it ensures that those who need paper copies are left behind. This is not about weakening the motion, it's about strengthening it, because the policy works for everyone. Thank you.
Councillor Barclay, as a proposer of the amendment, do you wish to reply to the debate on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to say that I think it makes the motion actually stronger, and I personally, having been somebody who dealt with policies and documents a lot, if you leave something out, you can't automatically assume that it's going to be read as being in there. So the purpose of the motion is to strengthen, the amendment is to strengthen the motion, and I hope colleagues will see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is the amendment agreed? Agreed. Okay, we have a dissenting voices, so we'll conduct a vote on the amendment. So we're going to do a vote by a show of hands. Councillor Taylor? Okay. Just talk to Councillor Barclay. No, you can speak if you had a point of information.
Thank you. Just clarification, obviously, as a person who put this motion together, it's definitely not meant to exclude anybody, and anybody that would want the papers could certainly ask and, you know, send emails. I fancy I want it for every committee. I need it, you know, for whatever reason. You don't need a reason at all. But if you want paper copies, you know, have paper copies. But this is just
sorry,
like
Councillor, that's not really a point of information, not asking a question. We can go back to speak after the vote.
It's just that sometimes when you go to committees, there's piles of committee papers that no one uses.
You can say that later on if the vote's not counted. So can we have a show of hands on the vote, please? So for all in favour of the amendment? All opposed to the amendment? Are there any abstentions? Okay, the amendment is carried 28 votes to 16. So the motion as amended takes the place of the original motion. So this is now the substantive motion to which any further amendments are moved. Do any other members wish to ask a question, speak or move on another amendment? Yeah, Councillor Curtis.
Could we make another amendment? Could we make an amendment that says cease printing of agenda packs and committee papers by default from the start of the municipal year?
Sorry, Councillor, I can't quite hear you. Do you mind standing up?
Could we move another amendment? Rather than what we've got, could we put cease printing of agenda packs and committee papers by default from the start of the municipal year, unless requested by members? Like, can we have something that kind of like keeps in the training, keeps in the support, keeps in that we're removing it by default? But we want to make sure that people are supported if they need that.
I think you'd need something more concise and clear to
so could we have cease printing of
writing.
agenda packs and committee papers by default from the start of the municipal year, supported by training and device support for members who need it. This would not exempt members who need physical copies from receiving them.
Okay, just bear with me a second. I think on this occasion, it's better to have the amendments in advance in writing. I think it's a bit too difficult for people to, understand what the actual change is being made in relation to the rest of the amendment. Councillor Curtis.
So it would be exactly the same, but just this would not exempt members from receiving physical copies if requested. One sentence addition.
So that's in addition to the amendment.
So we keep the original in the original motion, but add that one sentence at the end, which hopefully should address everybody's concerns.
I'm not confident whether the Chamber can follow these extra changes, so on this occasion we won't have another amendment. But do any members wish to speak or ask a question? Councillor Taylor.
I've need to speak again.
So please stand, Councillor Davies.
So Councillor Taylor has proposed the motion and needs to close the debate. I haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, you can speak now if you want to ask a question.
I think what we have with this motion is broadly positive, and I welcome the cross-party support on it. I think what we've removed was seeking to stop the practice of a stack of agendas in a meeting printed by Democratic Services for the use of the public or members that have forgotten their agenda pack. I think that's broadly what that was trying to do. What we've removed, and the reasons for giving its removal, were covered in Resolution 1. The fact that members, as required, for accessibility and operational grounds, will be allowed digital and paper in equal merit as they choose. But broadly speaking, I'm happy with so much support. And just reflect on the fact that from a recycled paper and a chlorine-free paper, the NHS has been sending out letters of that standard for quite a while. There are a number in my house of that standard, and it really does show what is possible. And it's the scale that's available in the public sector. I'm not seeking to re-amend the motion. I appreciate the motion as amended is substantive, but yes, I think we've sort of ended up at cross purposes today. But glad that we're moving forward a substantive and realistic change for the council.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, as the original proposer, do you want to reply to the debate?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Councillor, had his hand up as well, so I couldn't see you in the corner. You'll get there and eventually, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I really do need to move seats. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for bringing this motion today. I am slightly concerned that a motion to propose a request for an amendment has been declined this evening. There is substantial precedent for us proposing amendments in this chamber in that way, and they have been successfully debated in the past. I'm slightly concerned by that ruling, but as with any motion that will reduce our carbon footprint and reduce our outgoings as a council, this has my full support. I did want to comment that while replacing printed material with digital alternatives is a great move, it does bring with it the potential for additional cost and additional carbon in the devices themselves, the likes of lithium batteries and aluminium casings. I'd ask that, if passed, which I hope it will be tonight, any implementation of this policy also considers the real viability of a bring-your-own-device policy, as many other regulated private sector organisations have, to give members and council staff the option to not incur additional expense through device procurement. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I did agree to the amendment because I thought it supported more people who are not comfortable with digital and are more comfortable with paper copies. But I still have my reservations about the whole motion. Recycling is an energy-intensive process and has several disadvantages that affect economics, quality and environments. Print, ink adhesives, coatings and food residue contaminate pulp, lowering quality and increasing processing needs. Mixed grades, i.e. newspaper, office paper, cardboard, have different fibre lengths and contamination levels when mixed, which reduces end product performance. De-inking and cleaning, removing inks, adhesives and fillers requires chemical treatments, flotation washing and screens, which raises energy, water and chemical use. Recycling mills need specialised equipment and maintenance, which can be costly for small operators. Recycling requires substantial energy use and large volumes of water and requires wastewater treatment of sludge that must be managed. Collecting, sorting and transporting low-density paper can produce significant greenhouse gas emissions if distances are long or collection rates are low. Recycled paper is sold into markets that vary over time and geography. Weak demand can lead to stockpiling or disposal. Many recycled papers are converted into low-grade products rather than replacing high-quality virgin paper. There is also an occupational hazard as workers can be exposed to dust, chemical agents and biological contaminants if facilities lack control. In view of the financial constraints we are faced with in the present climate, I feel our resources could be put to better use. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Before I try and start to invite Councillor Taylor to stand again, does anybody else want to speak?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Well, to go last first, I'm not sure exactly where you get your information from, but it's much better for the environment to get recycled paper, and it's, you know, but yeah, I definitely don't agree with anything you said.
Fact.
So I just wanted to
let Councillor Taylor finish what you have to say.
Thank colleagues for the support. I know it was a small, you know, adjustment to the motion, which I was relieved when I saw, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's good to work together for the greater good. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Is this motion agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The motion is agreed. We are, colleagues, we are reaching the close to the 3 hour, the run over time. So is everyone happy to continue without a break and complete the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move forward then to motion 3. So motion 3 is a higher education crisis, has been submitted by Councillors Barclay, L. McHugh, J. Carter, L. Proudlock and R. Porthouse. I'm aware Councillor Barclay will request consent of the meeting to alter her original motion. Do members agree to alter the original motion?
Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Barclay, please present your altered motion.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. Council, I am pleased to be bringing this motion tonight. As the motion says, education skills are at the heart of our economic regeneration and the path to tackling long-term unemployment, both of which have a profound impact on the health and well-being of our communities and especially the future of our young people, but also for those who wish to reskill, retrain or return to the world of work. Our higher education sector is a key partner in helping us to achieve our goals. Higher education is important for individuals and to advance society. We work on some fantastic vital projects with our local universities, including partnership with Northumbria and Newcastle universities on health and well-being, which is an important part of my lead member portfolio. The benefits that open up as a result of attaining higher qualifications include higher earnings, improved health outcomes, including mental health, and greater civic engagement. It also supports innovation, economic growth. It supports the development of life skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and communications. As partners, we want to ensure that the higher education sector fosters social mobility, ensuring equal access and driving economic development. We are fortunate in this region to have world-class universities that work with the public sector, including South Tyneside Council and our business sector. They are innovative and competitive, including through knowledge transfer and professional development, especially with our business schools. They are pivotal in improving social mobility, especially by providing access for disadvantaged groups. This motion highlights the challenges that universities currently face, including the financial constraints that they operate under. including in retaining their international competitiveness. The motion highlights the financial burden that going to university places on students. The increase in tuition fees has put further pressure year on year. For the academic year 25-26, this was £9,535. The government announced on Monday that tuition fees will be increasing in line with inflation. However, due to the introduction of the international student level and the extent of the crisis, these changes are predicted to do little to mitigate the crisis in higher education. As an employer, our universities are looking to make significant cuts to courses and staffing as a direct result of the crisis in financial security. This poses a real threat to the ambition we have for the region and for our local economy, but importantly for the retention of skills in the region and opportunities for the workforce needed to deliver economic security for our community and residents. The cuts being made in the sector directly affect teaching quality, student support, the research output, negatively impacting students and staff, including our own residents and the opportunities available to them. I ask you to support the recommendations and actions called upon in the motion. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Okay, this motion seconded. Councillor McHugh, would you like to speak now or reserve the right?
No, I'll reserve the right to speak, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I understand that Councillor Davies has submitted an amendment to this motion. So, Councillor Davies, would you like to present your amendment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I welcome the speech that Councillor Barclay gave there in presenting this motion. These are friendly amendments. It's a very fast-moving area at the moment with lots of announcements. So it's evolved since it was submitted as a result of both of our work on this. The biggest issue that universities are facing alongside the fee restriction, which is well documented through the report, is that around immigration. And that's after nearly a decade now of this restriction as a result of Brexit. Academics left on that news, students left on that news, and then Brexit finally happened. There's a loss of funding, key research partnerships, and barriers of both staff and students to move freely between the UK and Europe. The Erasmus scheme, for whatever reason, is bundled up through all of that, and that right to freely travel and learn and see cross-culturally the impact that we're able to have when we look as a wider community is at everybody's detriment. In addition to that, though, the new government has tightened the visa rules, following on from the previous administration. And so international students, particularly those later now in life, that have filled the gap that's been left by the much more mobile European students that came before Brexit, that would have been bringing their families. They've got higher financial thresholds, and there's been a sharp drop in international students as a result. This is a direct threat on jobs, as the motion points out, as a direct result in the standard of our teaching and the research output and the opportunity in our region with 3 outstanding universities so close by, but then, of course, our FE colleges that offer higher education programs, and of course our own Marine College. Our universities employ over 20,000 people. They educate 125,000 students in the North East. When they're under threat, so are local jobs, research partnerships that feed into our business community, and the prospects of that whole generation. So I went back to university to do a 3rd degree. The amendments call for the urgent government action to fix a broken funding model and direct engagement with our university leaders to protect staff and students. I urge you to support these amendments and in the spirit that they're being made. And this is an opportunity for a higher education system that works for everybody here in South Tyneside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Is the amendment seconded?
I'd like to second it, but reserve my right to speak later in the debate, please.
Do any members wish to ask a question or speak on the amendment? Oh, Councillor Barclay, that's if no one else wants to speak. Yeah, Councillor Barclay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I just raise a couple of issues, particularly in terms of the amendment? In terms of the tuition fees, the marketisation and financial restructuring of the university sector intensified significantly following the Conservative government's decision to triple tuition fees. The amendment suggests that the recent announcement that fees will be rising in line with inflation is welcome. However, it also suggests that tuition fees are what underpins the issues around the marketisation of higher education and the resultant financial problems. It is therefore unclear whether the amendment supports or opposes tuition fees in this regard. Not only is the increase in tuition fees insufficient for solving the current financial crisis, continually raising fees and in turn debt levels is not the solution to a fundamentally broken funding model. Rather, the government needs to take a more wide-ranging, in-depth approach to reforming the structure of higher education sector. In regards to international students, Brexit and immigration laws, it is true that Brexit and the tightening of immigration laws, particularly under the Conservative government, have led to lower numbers of international students. This in turn has had serious knock-on effects for university finances. International students should be welcome, and one of the strengths of the university sector is in its international connectedness. However, we do not believe that the extortionate fees charged to international students should be seen as the solution to the ongoing funding crisis in the university sector, and I am unconvinced that the amendment reflects this. So I would say that in particular, in regard to both of those key issues within the amendment, I will not be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Before I ask Councillor Francis if you would like to speak as a seconder, would anybody else like to raise any points? Councillor Francis, would you like to speak as a seconder of the amendment?
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So, totally agree with the intention of the original motion and that higher education is in crisis in this country. And of course, we want everyone who wishes to pursue higher education to have that opportunity. And while the motion points out some of the facts and data, I'm not sure it really looks at the root causes, and perhaps that's partially because some of those are squarely the fault of current and previous national governments. And the piece that we were seeking to strike through, just for clarification, I'll read this out. The original wording says, the introduction of tuition fees at rates of £9,000 per year, and then it goes on about increases. And I just felt that personally, I feel that's not quite clear, because tuition fees weren't introduced at 9,000. They were introduced under the Labour government in the late 90s at £1,000 per year, and there's been successive increases since then. And of course, the commodification of education, I would argue, starts at that point where you begin to make those annual tuition fees charges. It, of course, was worsened significantly by the coalition government. Just to pick up on the non-political, I would say, hopefully, points, these aren't being made by politicians, so these are comments from the Vice-Chancellor of Newcastle University. He talks about how the loss in around 1,000 international students has resulted in a 35 million black hole in the university budget, but he's also quoted as saying on record, we've been lobbying the government to look at the support, particularly that we get for home students. It's most striking how little the government actually gives us in terms of teaching grants for students. And so Whether we're talking about, I know the motion isn't talking about the wider issue of tuition fees, but personally, my opinion has always been that fully funding places for people to pursue higher education, as I enjoyed, and I'm sure other people in this chamber did, that's not a cost, it's an investment in the country, and it's an investment in all of our futures. So I support the amendment. If the amendment should fall, I'm also happy to support the motion.
Okay, Councillor Francis. Councillor Davies, as a proposer of the amendment, do you wish to reply to the debate?
Thank you, Chair. Again, it was a friendly amendment trying to highlight the issues that sector leaders are highlighting to us. It's a direct lived experience. Many of my friends are lecturers in Newcastle and surrounding universities, and they've had this hanging over their heads for the last 2 years. And so, you know, just trying to sort of structure it in the spirit that this motion was intended for. I would welcome a debate on both student debt and tuition fees. I personally, in terms of the economic side of things, challenge the framing around it as a debt. It's a graduate tax, just not structured that way under the current fee. I definitely have a debt. I get a letter off the government for it. And, you know, I might pay it back at some point. It's been, how many years now? 15 years in the making, at least, and it's about the same size as I had when I left. So, yeah, that's how it goes. So, I would urge colleagues opposite to support this, as it is meant to be friendly and highlight some of the wider issues, not just around funding. But, yeah, happy to support the motion unamended.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Is the amendment agreed? There are dissenting voices, so I'll ask the monitoring officer to conduct a vote on the amendment. So the monitoring officer will announce the result after the vote. So all those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands. Okay, all those against the amendment, please raise your hand. Are there any abstentions? Okay, so the vote is 13 in favour and 31 against the amendment, so the original motion remains unchanged. Do any other members wish to ask a question, speak, or move another amendment? Okay. Councillor Barclay, as the original proposer, do you wish to reply to the debate?
Just, I think it's really nice to see that both sides of the chamber want to work on issues together, and I think tonight has been a bit of a watershed for us, so I hope that we can continue in the same vein going forward. Thank you very much for your support.
Okay. Is the original motion agreed? Thank you, colleagues. This is the original motion without amendment. It remains a substantive motion, and that is agreed. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the business of today's council. Thank you all for participating, and good night.